Great. Hey, Arti. So nice to see you here and been kind of like following your journey little bit through our common WhatsApp groups that thanks to a community called Women from IIM has like helped me cross path with um, awesome people like you and like Paro and a lot many more people. Thank you for taking out this time to have this discussion with me, Swati from the Unscripted Career. The motivation behind it is mainly to have a little bit of documentation on career journeys beyond what we see on LinkedIn. So that is my main discussion agenda here. Welcome.
Thanks, Swati. Such a pleasure to be here. And I think you're doing something really fun, something really helpful also. The WM community that you mentioned, yeah, it's very, very close to my heart. I think it has been an amazing platform for a lot of us to hear each other's stories, learn, sometimes just have spectator views, right? So, and the fact that you're trying to document some parts of it is really exciting, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so from your LinkedIn, what I know about you is that you graduated from IIM Ahmedabad the year 2000, and then you went on to work with various tech startups and like some early stage, some established and like known names like Yahoo, Rediff, and all. And then you moved to India. You also worked on Indian startups like Hopscotch, like your own startup Style Nook, and then more recently have been working in the consulting and freelancing fractional CXO space and in like building startups. This is what your LinkedIn says. Tell me what Arti says on how she has built her
No,
career.
I think LinkedIn pretty much sums it up. This is how my career journey has been. What LinkedIn perhaps does not say is, and in fact, the title of your show, if I can call it, is absolutely perfect. The unscripted career, right? Because I actually haven't operated with a script for my career. So LinkedIn does kind of show some of that. A lot of my career moves have happened very organically. And I can actually take it back, like even from before IIMs, right? So some of it comes also from the background that I come from. I actually did not go to one of the rat race schools. And that's not because my parents were like visionaries who said we don't want to put a child in rat race. It was quite the opposite, in fact, where they were people of limited means and limited understanding. They sent me to the best school that was possible within their, understanding, their income. And so I went to a fairly no-name school in Bombay, did decently well in academics. You do need to do well in academics to kind of, get into some of the institutes. So when I went into engineering, I recognized that I was a terrible misfit. I had not been bred on this whole, rat race and this scripted path. I didn't have a script. And I felt really out of place in those 4 years of engineering. They did act as a way of learning a lot more about,
Tell me a little more. How? Like I can't see Arti not feeling like she owns the place.
Very, very opposite. I felt like, oh my God, wherever I arrived, number one, everybody seemed to know everything, right? Like they knew all the subjects, they knew where they wanted to go after engineering. They knew universities in the US because that was like where most people went for the masters. They knew all of that. I did not even know that people are supposed to go to like a master's program after engineering program. Like I came from, that was my starting point. So I felt like very overwhelmed. Also, there was this whole methodology to how to crack exams that like a lot of my peers had really done. And I mean, I'll be honest, I had also had to do that, right? Like to get the grades in 10th and 12th, you do have to do that kind of like thoda rigorous studying. But I thought, chalo, 10, 12th mein ho gaya, and after that, like, kind of life gets a reset. That didn't happen. You were only supposed to build on top of that. So I got really, really overwhelmed with that. So I felt very out of place. Philosophically, it just wasn't like, the kind of environment. But I also learned a little bit about like the rat race. I started kind of, picking up bits and pieces and understanding, so then I realized that, okay, I wanted to do an MBA. Yeah. I did not want to do a master's in tech. again, more organic than anything else. MBA, I figured I could do it in India. I could do it at a lower cost. Doing a master's was a more expensive,
Yeah.
ambition. So that's how I went towards IIM. Again, I had not even heard of the IIMs when I entered engineering. So that was part of the learning. And so I wrote the CAT, managed to get into IIM Ahmedabad, which was again a life-changing, point for me. And I arrived at IIM Ahmedabad again feeling very overwhelmed because I was also surrounded by very, very, very smart people, 10x smarter than my engineering peers, except for there was a cultural shift that I experienced. Is a very competitive campus, but there is also a lot of collaboration woven into the culture, and I found a lot of people backing me up. And there were some things I was good at, right? Even as I was being overwhelmed, it's not like I sucked at everything. And I found it in me also to give back to the community. And we were all kind of, there's this whole culture of REMs at IMA where if you couldn't figure what you're supposed to do, you go to somebody who has, and they'll give you a little bit of a quick REM so that you are able to survive the next day. So while it was a very intense time, very trying, very challenging, overwhelming for sure, it also gave me a lot of self-belief. And that's how I said, okay, so now that script is kind of coming together. I started it very unscripted, and I'm like, okay, the script is coming together. And so I graduated from IIM Ahmedabad and went into this corporate role. Like, I started my career at this watch group. But the thing is, what I hadn't, again, scripted in my mind is that a couple of years later, I moved to the US and I'd seen other people do it. So there was a little bit of a script available. And most people, when they did that, they would basically, there is some degree of alumni credibility and connection, especially within the Fortune 500 companies. And so I thought, chalo, great, that script is something I can follow. And I went there and I realized that, oh, timing is everything in America. I went into the US post 9/11, and early 2002 was when I arrived. And most Fortune 500 companies had been laying off. And then the labor laws dictate that if you've been laying people off, you cannot hire somebody and issue them a fresh H1 visa. And I needed an H1 visa to be able to work there. I had gone on an H4 because I'd gotten married and moved there. And again, I was following a little bit of a script, not like there was a lot of people before me who had followed that script and gone. And within like 2 months, that landed a job, started working. I thought, okay, I have the degrees, I have the ability, I have the hustle, I should be able to. Unfortunately, that script was not mine. That really was probably a very big pivotal moment for me, right? Like, I had to figure what I wanted to do now. Many, again, in my peer group in that time and space, I remember ended up saying, okay, housewife life is fun. Great. Let's kind of do that. Some of them went back to school saying, chalo, use the time to, get an education. I'm like, hey, I just got like a pretty first class education in my pocket. Do I just want to go to school to while away time till the economy improves? I actually did consider even coming back to India because, career wise, that was a great time to be in India. And I said, okay, let me give this like a little bit of, a rigor, some hustle, knock on doors, figure out. So I did a lot of cold calling and knocking on doors and even asking for internships, just an ability to get into the door.
So the main focus was on like getting a job and not like this type of job or a job that pays this much or like, hey,
Because
the management job.
that luxury had gone out of gone out it may have been there initially, but as I started knocking on doors and kept getting rejections, I realized, okay, that's something that I may just have to shelve for now. Let's first get into the workforce, right? And so I ended up going to an early stage startup, Sulekha.com. They just raised money, they were building a team, and again, the salary expectation that I was probably like at less than half of that, but it was what it was. It was a job. It was also an exciting role, and that's actually something that really like triggered this understanding for me that an exciting role, a good role where you fit well, is actually a really big gift. Money may not happen, at least it didn't happen immediately. It did happen because once you start working, once you start getting credibility, you're proving to kind of so I money started improving, and then I think within a couple of years things were normalized. But initially I definitely went through that. So for me, a lot of my career moments have been like, hey, I'm here now, what do I do? uh,
Yeah.
and that's how, so even when Sulekha.com I was working, I was kind of trying to figure out where next do I go, because part of it was from a career progression, part of it was also from like a personal life, my
Mm.
husband had gone to university, like to do his MBA there, and then he wanted to work in finance, which means we needed to work in New York. And I was trying to figure out what to do in New York. And ideally, I should have again gone and systematically looked up like a whole bunch of companies, interviewed, etc. But I just got a call out of the blue from Rediff asking me if I wanted to be a part of this team that was building out the whole PNL in the US. Sounded really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
At a time when PNL was just like one accounting thing. Now suddenly you get to go and kind of be a part of this team, a very small team. And that's the other thing, right? So some things then became a pattern in my career, being part of early stage journeys, being a part of like small teams that kind of pull things together. That kept following even through like further steps in my career. And so from there, like everything has just really flowed organically. Even starting my own company wasn't like one fine day I said, oh, I'm tired of this corporate job and I'm going to kind of quit everything and go and start my own. No, it kind of flowed from there. I had like enough experience in the startup space, and I wanted to build something. And I met my co-founder, and she and I figured that together we had the ambition and complementary skill sets and market opportunity where
Yeah.
we could like pull it all together and build something really cool. So it just happened that way.
Yeah. You make it sound very easy, Arti. The fact that when you are in even early stage startups, but you are not necessarily the one looking for the funding, like in Sulekha, in Rediff, in like those companies. I'm sure that would have been like a big shift from, hey, that paycheck is going to stop coming for a small, like a short while, right? Was that the reality? How were you navigating that?
Are you saying when I started Style Nook?
Yes.
Uh, so the thing is, I did not start Style Nook in my 20s, right? I had worked, I started it at 40. I mean, and part of it was also like before Style Nook, I was at Hopscotch again. I was part of the founding team. Had really helped kind of build it and take it to like a really exciting stage. Been there through Series A, Series B. I actually had to take a pause and consider that what did I want to do next? Like I could have definitely, and I would have loved to continue building hopscotch as well. But somewhere in my head, that 40s clock was ticking, because through all these startup journeys, I had that entrepreneurial itch.
Yeah.
I wanted to start something of my own at some point. In fact, I had been considering that even before joining Hopscotch. And the only reason I ended up shelving those plans and I joined Hopscotch was just again because it was right place, right time, right role. I just couldn't say no. I couldn't walk away from that. But when we closed Series B, it was a genuine question in my mind that should I now continue in this? Because then it meant that okay, it was also a growing company, no longer a small team.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, let me put it, I didn't know if the energy that I had in my 20s and 30s will be the same in the 40s. Today I know better. I feel I have even more energy, if
Yeah.
anything. But that point in time, it was a little bit of a concern in my head that, what if I lose momentum? What if I start winding down? What if I don't have that, early stage hustle and rigor that's needed? So if I don't do it now, I may never be able to do this. That was my concern.
Yeah.
And so that's when I made the shift to Style Nook. Again, good news is if you work till you're about 40 and you've been in startups, you've earned decent money, you've had ESOPs that have also had some, payoffs, you have a little bit of a safety net.
Yeah.
Career wise, you're not going to be, grow or bust point. You have a little bit of that. So that's why it was, and my co-founder and I, we were both in our 40s. So we didn't have this saying thing that, okay, I only have 6 months of rent in my bank. And if my
Yeah.
startup doesn't grow, I don't know what I'm going to do. I didn't have that problem. So starting out a little bit late was definitely easier in that sense. In some ways, maybe like, I feel that when you have like you're literally running out, maybe you might, I may have done some things differently, maybe
Yeah.
less patience, and that could have brought its own advantages. But yeah, that's not something I had control over.
Well, again, a lot of us around our 40s feel that financial freedom almost, but that thing of making that switch, calling something your own, I think like you really, really owned it and like you moved from there. Okay, so we have reached the place where you have worked and like grown through various tech startups. You've gotten hopscotch into a Series B funding, and then you decide to move into Style Nook. What's the journey after that?
I found entrepreneurship one of the hardest things to do in the entire series of startups, right? Because whether it was Sulekha, Rediff, Savan, Hopscotch, in between, I'd also done like a small, period of work for a US-based startup called iFood. And I'd experienced different segments, different sizes of companies, different scopes. Some were really scaled or went up to scale. Some did not go very far. It didn't matter. Uh, and I was, because part of the early stage teams, I was always almost always working directly with the founders. uh, I unfortunately realized as a founder though that so much of your time goes not in really building the business,
Yeah,
but in just the especially in India, right? We don't make it easy. Entrepreneurship is definitely very difficult in India, also because of all the complexities. Ye compliance file karna, you have to kind of do this, do that, the legalese, the accounting. Oh my god, the accounting work. I mean, if there was one thing that I was glad, I mean, that ended with like uh, shutting Style Nook, was that I didn't have to kind of look through accounts. And it's not like I have a problem looking at accounts. It's not that. It was an interesting work,
yeah,
right? And it's not something that anybody else can do. You are the founder. You are signing off on the final statements. And as an early stage, and Style pretty much remained in early stages for its entire 6 years of existence, because we unfortunately could not scale too much. We scaled somewhat, but never to kind of that point. Was that we didn't have big finance teams. It was usually one CA and me, and breaking our heads over like some of these things. So what I'm trying to say is that as a founder, you have responsibilities for the office space, the rent, the amount of time I have spent hunting for viable office space, which is
yeah,
easy on commute, which will also meet our budget, which will also be safe, which will also be, like a little bit of a fun, exciting place. I mean, I became like better than a real estate agent at some point, just trying to do that, right? Same thing in fundraising. You spend so much of your time fundraising. You spend so much of your time in business development. That actual building of the business is something that I had to kind of, rely on the rest of the team. And in my journey with other startups, it was the opposite, where I was
mhm,
having the fun role. Like I was building the businesses up. My poor founders were trying to, do all these painful pieces. Now, of course, when a business scales, all of those painful pieces become like very, very, meaningful.
yeah,
And when it doesn't, then that's when it feels such a, burden.
yeah. And you were obviously your son was growing up during those years as well, right? So how was it kind of managing both of these things? Because that the script that we as women have with our careers is that okay, we'll go like all engines blazing in our 20s. Around 30s we start feeling the clock of having the kids, and then like maybe taking slightly slower in our 30s while our kids are growing up, and maybe around 40s really again like pushing the pedal. Was that your script as well, or did it look slightly different?
Nobody gave me that script that you're supposed to slow down or you're supposed to take breaks and all of that. Not that anybody denied me it either. I mean, I have a very supporting spouse, and he's been happy to back up whatever way I go. But even the way I was raised, like I'm a working mom's kid. My husband's mom has also been a working mom. So, some of it is also like the culture of your family. So thankfully, I never had any burden or pressure internally saying, okay, no, no, now that you're a mom, you're supposed to slow down.
Yeah.
And it was not in my own internal wiring either, because I had grown up seeing my mom work, late hours. We were latchkey kids, and, I didn't know any other way of dealing with life. So I also did not have that guilt. What I've noticed is, for a lot of women, because when they've grown up, and there's this whole emotional, narrative around, when I came back from school, my mom was home, she gave me a snack, I, chatted with her, and I worry that if I work, my
Yeah.
child will be denied that experience. And that will kind of ruin my child's childhood. It will ruin how they grow up. It will make them whatever, emotionally, devoid, or whatever those fears kind of,
Yeah.
play out, right? And I did not have that.
That's what.
So I didn't have that guilt or fear that, oh, if I'm not home and if I'm not kind of waiting on my kid, anyway, I don't wait on my kid, but like if I'm not always around, it's going to ruin my, child's future. I did not have that fear at all, because I had seen fairly functional, like,
Yeah.
siblings and myself, and grow up, and I continue to be very close to my mom, right? In spite of the fact that I've actually been away from home since the age of 17. Like once you go to college, technically I've never really gone back home after that, because it was college and then MBA and then work, and then I moved abroad for 10 years, came back to India. So, but that doesn't mean that I've personally experienced that. That doesn't reduce the attachment, or like, the connection or closeness. So I did not have that fear in my mind that, oh my God, my child will be ruined if I choose this. Part of it was also the, equation that I have with my spouse, right? Both of us wanted to kind of have a kid at a time when we both could be a part of that. It was never an expectation that, oh, you're the mom and so it's your responsibility. I'll, I'll be honest, I do get a disproportionate share of the responsibility, but my spouse has been always very clear. In fact, if I remember, so we had my son and I only have one child. That was part of the narrative, though. That was my script. I realized that once I was a mom and I was able to weave in, like, work life in a way that it was manageable.
Yeah.
I thought one kid is manageable. With two, it may just get like much, much harder. And
Yeah.
that was the fear I had, that would probably force me to, slow down or, unplug. And maybe for some people, unplugging is also pretty, I'm not judging it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just that I wasn't that person. I really enjoy working. I have fun working. Like, so that was a call I made saying, okay, one is good. I don't think I can do kids and family and career and like all of that, in, and like feel fulfilled. If I look back, and I'm sure I could have probably still done all right. Most
Yeah.
people do. I see people with two kids and they're doing fabulously well, right? So I'm not denying that. But in my own mind, like in our minds, we kind of made the call that, chalo, this is good enough to kind of keep the career momentum going. So yeah, I think I did not really think of taking.
So the child decision was not like a make or break in most of your career decisions, and like the balancing act of. I love that thing of you said I did not feel guilty, because I think that's where I see a lot of my friends, my colleagues kind of like feeling that, hey, is that the right decision to make at this point in time? Because the career is going great. Is this going to put a pause and so on? So as long as you have the right support system in place, that did not really like make make any difference, or maybe like not a significant difference in your
Yeah,
career.
see, I also had an unfair advantage again because of, like I said, the organic nature of like a lot of my movement, right? Because I was working at largely startups, I didn't have any corporate norms to follow. So I could work from home from time to time. I did not exercise too much of that because I found myself working better when I went into the office, but I had the option. And I think having that option is very powerful.
Yeah.
I could also, for example, when I was at hopscotch, and those 3-4 years was also that phase in the child's life where he was going to school, but only for those couple of hours, right? Like the nursery and the pre-K years.
Yeah.
And so if he comes home by 12 or 1, and then if I come home at 7 or 8, it's just a very long time. So I made a call and I kind of worked my entire schedule around saying, okay, I will leave office by 5:30
Yeah.
because I wanted to be home for that 6 to 9 window, which is when you have park time, you have, a bath, you have a meal together, story time, etc., etc. And so my husband and I kind of divided and conquered on that one. He would take over mornings, and I would actually land in the office at 8 a.m. So
Uh-huh.
I got an early start. And I remember I used to block my calendar out after 4:30. I would not even take, like, my calendar was blocked.
Yeah.
Maybe like 4 or 5 days in that entire time, I would have probably stayed back beyond that.
Yeah.
Mostly I did not. Mostly I also did not make anybody, it's easy to say though, that I will not work beyond a certain time, but everybody else is working, right? It's also an unfair system. So it means that there's a lot of planning that goes into making sure that in those 3 hours that you're not in the office and everybody else is, nothing's ever gonna, block people because
Yeah.
you're not available.
Yeah.
Which means I am having to plan. I can't be spontaneous and passive in my workflows. I have to be proactive and a super planner. I feel that phase was really like, I've gone back to being much more relaxed about my planning and structure, but that phase just like really pushed me to become this super duper planner where everything, like anything that could come up, I had already kind of preempted it and, like, blocked it and addressed it before it became an issue. It is tough.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
You spoke about feeling the fear of, hey, I might not have the energy, but then from there, actually never really getting into a phase of not having that energy. So if you were to think back on what helped you not get into that phase, because a lot of like discussions with friends, I'm in my late 30s, suggest that late 30s is where little bit of identity crisis creeps in at times, that am I living my best life, like what is this balance between career and life and so on. So did you get through that time? What did it look like?
I've always had a pretty good balance between life and career. So I work crazy hours when there's a need, but I'll also do a lot of things outside of work which are very energizing for me, right? So whether it's my music, whether it's like, I used to be a runner. I don't run anymore, but there was a big phase in my life where I used to be a runner, travel. I've never worked at the cost of life,
Uh-huh.
and life has also never cost me work. Because I actually realize that this whole work-life balance, is just uh, not even a myth. It's just like a buzzword. And also, work cannot conflict with life. Work is part of life, right? Why
Yeah.
should it conflict with life? Work is very important to me. It's a very important part of me,
Yeah.
and I shouldn't feel guilty about it. And I shouldn't feel guilty about the rest of my life either, because they are
Yeah.
all again parts of me. So how do you kind of make it all fit in is where, and then of course, as a result, there are things that you will walk away from, which maybe are like the standards, the norms.
Yeah.
So, for example, if it was popular for people to do like Saturday brunches, but I may not be available for them because I have chosen to do something else with my time in that. And I'm okay with that. I eventually have to be okay with that. Or equally, like, after work, going out for drinks and partying, etc. If I'm not in that, it's okay. I don't need to feel the guilt. It's my call. It's my decision.
Yeah.
My choice. And no need to really feel like the FOMO of it.
Yeah, that's what exactly what I was picking, that you haven't succumbed to FOMO on things. And a lot of the way you talk about your career also feels very like purpose driven, that, you were really enjoying all of those phases, because what also causes that mid 30s, late 30s slump is because you get stuck in this place of middle management where you're feeling like, hey, I don't know, like, am I seeing that growth potential, etc. So I feel like
See,
maybe
I
that.
also didn't have a script, right? I didn't have a script that by my 30 I should be earning so much and I should own like, so many assets, and by my 40 I should be here and my like whatever. I have not done financially badly. So it's not like, not having that script has hurt me too much. But not having that script also kind of kept it freer, right?
Yeah.
And also the way it works in a lot of the startup journeys is it's not like that year on year increment. Often the growth comes in fits and starts.
Yes.
And then when the jumps happen, they happen like, in big, quantums
Yeah.
versus getting that year on year increment. I've never really had to worry about that year increment conversation, like, with my manager.
That must be very freeing for sure.
It is, I think. Yeah, now I can
Yeah.
say that it is. At a time, I used to feel FOMO about it. Ketcha? Like, people go through this, like, come, end of the year, everybody suddenly, like, going into these, and I am like in my lala land. So there was a time when I felt the FOMO of it, probably, but now I realize that no, it's okay. Again, it's a jungle gym, kind of a career journey. So
Yeah.
not growing in those set, pathways.
Has helped. Great. And then last 3-4 years of the fractional, more consulting, more freelance oriented gigs, if I may say, how has that been? And like, how easy has it been to get those gigs and responsibilities?
So honestly, again, it has been very organic for me. Uh, when I shut Style Nook, I actually took a break. So I'm not, like I said, I've not taken too many breaks, but when I shut Style Nook, I genuinely took a break. I really needed it. I was burned out. I was tired. I was just like really spent. So I needed to kind of, zone in a little bit. And then like when I shut down Style Nook, there were a couple of conversations still in the pipeline about like, some acquisitions, which didn't play out eventually, but it kept me busy.
Yeah.
I was doing meetings, I was doing presentations, I was doing some like, whatever stuff to make that happen. And so it kept me a little bit busy working, but not like, the day to day pressure of working. And in that pause phase, see, I'm an extrovert. So I catch up with people very easily. I meet people, I talk to people. And so one of my investors, in fact, reached out to me and said, listen, it was great catching up with you last week. And by the way, there's this role that is coming up and I was wondering if you want to do it. It was with the Bianis to help build Broadway.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't have retail experience. I don't know why you're talking to me about this role. And they said, no, they need somebody who doesn't have retail experience, but they actually who has more of tech startup experience. Also, the fact that you have so much of 0 to 1 experience. I mean, honestly, they gave me the term 0 to 1. I hadn't even come up with that. I hadn't thought of it.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can think from first principles and it all kind of, I said, okay, sure, let's have a meeting. And so I was still, like I said, burned out. I wasn't looking to sign up for something where, okay, this is my next big thing. And at the same time, I realized that I didn't have the energy to work. I don't do very well with just, sitting and relaxing.
Yeah.
And the concept sounded really exciting. I could like quickly roll up my sleeves and get down to, helping build that out. And so I think what one big thing that I learned through my own entrepreneurship experience, right? And I think you asked a little bit about the difference between being a founder and
Yeah.
an employee at a startup. One big revelation to me as a founder was that, because as a founder, you taking so many shocks from the
Yeah.
system. Demonetization is a shock to the founder. COVID is a shock to the founder. Fundraising conversation not going well is a shock to the founder. You such big shocks that as a founder you keep absorbing. You need members in the team who will absorb a lot of the operational shocks so that as a founder, you're able to kind of bring in your vision, your direction, your even operational capability without having to also firefight on those fronts.
Yes.
And to be honest, that was one thing I realized, that every founder needs, right, someone who can kind of just come in and say, hey, listen, this part I got it,
Yeah.
because I know that you're trying to
Sumit संभाल लेगा. Arti संभाल लेगी.
and so I remember when I had that conversation with Vivek Biani as well, and he started kind of painting the picture. When I met him, it was a PowerPoint presentation, like it was an idea. And then very quickly I said, okay, these are the things I can definitely take care of. And I like doing that, okay, I can be that person where I have the experience to build things out. And if someone's trying to build something, I can definitely kind of, come in and quickly help them, take a lot of shock, away from them, and kind of help build. And that kind of gives them immense amounts of freedom to do other things that are also equally required for the business, right? So Broadway required like a whole lot of physical space development and design, and it's a whole real estate project, and that itself is huge. And so the fact that I could leave them to do that and do that well, where I was kind of putting together the business, was a win-win, to be honest. I love doing that. I was doing what I love doing, and I didn't have to worry about all those like things that I didn't enjoy doing as a founder. At the same time, the founder was getting so much leverage, so that's how the fractional roles really worked out for me. I said, okay, yeah, I can do this, and I can help like other founders get that support that they need, because that's also speed to market. Without expertise, without functional backing, sometimes you take longer to go and solve certain problems, right? And speed is a lot in this time and age.
Yes.
So when you can have that really eases the founder's mind that, okay, I got it, like there's somebody who's going to be able to take care of a big piece of the equation. So that's how the fractional roles have worked out. And I did wrap up Broadway earlier this year, and I'm doing now a fractional CEO role for Drishti, helping build a rural supply chain. And again, their founders have a vision. They actually have the teams and the pathways also for all of this, but they just needed like somebody to come and like pull all of it together, bring in structure, bring in frameworks, bring in operational expertise, but also that energy that's needed, like sometimes having learned too much and then not having the energy to unlearn and like rebuild. So because I've been part of startups, that first principle thinking has now become part of core DNA.
Yes.
That helps as well.
Amazing. I know you started with having some level of imposter syndrome when you joined the engineering college, and then when you joined IIM Ahmedabad, and then like through the shocks and kind of like always having that resilience and getting yourself to keep having that resilience is what built that DNA, right? You make it sound very, very easy, Arti.
No, so I will also be honest, it is not easy. There are enough tough days, and there have been. Maybe in my 20s, the tough days would have really scared me. And I think when you go through them and you kind of still come out all right with some bruises, but not broken, you learn, right? So that's what kind of builds the resilience. Resilience is not avoiding the tough days. It's actually facing enough of them that you stop worrying about them too much.
Yes, and I see your 1% better every day type of mentality in the fitness group. So for anyone who's seeing this, Arti has been on an amazing fitness journey as well. Again, not making it sound like something like I am only doing this, but just like integrating that, making it fun, doing things that you really enjoy, finding the right partners in there as well. I know you how much you love your fitness trainers and your yoga teacher and your dance instructor and so on. So just like bringing in life to each and everything that you do, because you know that you'll feel that it re-energizes you as well. It's been so inspirational, Arti. Thank you so much for taking out time. I know you have like a big meeting scheduled for the day, so I'm holding myself back from asking many more questions. But thank you so much for joining me. I have really learned a lot from this, but also this I from this discussion, if I can put one thing, like it in one word, is the positive attitude that I see from you. This thing of ho jayega, kar lenge. That is what shines out. Obviously, you are brilliant. You've done all these brilliant things. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Swati. Such a fun morning. I have, like you said, I do have a big meeting, which is very like, intense kind of a meeting. So this was a great conversation to have before.
I was telling Paro, conversations are more caffeinated for me than coffee. So thank you for making my Friday morning
And I
excellent.
think one thing I'll just end with, because you talked about like, the positive attitude, right? It's just about and yeah, I do have, I mean, almost like the toxic optimism, like, seeing the glass half full all the time. But it's even not so much about like, engineering an attitude, saying, oh, I need to kind of have a positive attitude about this, but it's more about, okay, if something's good for you, you naturally have to start liking it. It's like, the fitness group that you talked about, right? And I actually went through, by the way, a couple of years in my life, like the COVID years especially, I
Yeah.
went completely off fitness. And it instantly showed up in my body weight. It showed up in my, energy levels. So this energy that we talk about, in some ways it had maybe started like, fading a little bit. And then I recognized that, okay, this is something that I needed to work on fixing. And again, it's not something I had never worked on before. I had been working. What changed for me is the approach, because I stopped looking at the outcome. What had
Yeah.
always kind of been the failure was that I was looking at, oh, I need to do a certain amount of weight loss to feel better, look better, be fitter, and therefore I'm going to do these exercises and go on this diet, etc. And I actually took the outcome off the table and said, okay, in order to achieve an outcome, there are certain number of tasks that I need to do. Can I first make sure that I'm doing those tasks? So, the group that you talk about,
Yeah.
it's called 75 for a reason, right? That we commit to and measure 75 workouts in a quarter.
Yes.
And I mean, for all of us, I think that's one thing that we've kind of learned through that process, right? That if you are going to consistently work out, yeah, maybe different people have different journeys. Some may lose weight, some may not. I, by the way, have not lost any weight in the entire last year. But the fact that it keeps you committed, it also keeps you motivated. So the positivity really comes from like, knowing that you committed to something and you were able to do it, and you do see the positive outcomes. Weight is not the only metric. In fact, there
Yeah.
are other metrics that you may not even have thought of. So this energy that I talk about,
Yes.
it's an unmeasurable like, element, but it comes into your life and it comes in such a, a big way, which you just cannot have like a target, right? Or till when I leave a certain, when I reach a certain level of energy, I'm going to kind of, be
Yes.
happy. It doesn't work like that. So sometimes you just have to sit and get the shit done and hope that the outcomes come, and then they mostly do.
Yes. I love all of it, and I feel like I never realized when it started happening for me. This like, let's do this day the way, in the best way possible, and kal ka kal dekhenge. That when that starts coming, right, the trajectory, I don't know, it magically
It adds
starts
up. It adds up.
changing.
It adds up. Yeah, every single day starts adding up, and then you start seeing that like
Yeah. So that 1% compounding effect, I have seen like literally in front of my eyes with you, Arti. And obviously your career is much longer than that, but it's so inspiring, and I'm very fortunate to be able to have this conversation. So thank you so much. Wishing you
pleasure.
all the very best for your meeting, but I know you have all the
Thank you. Thank you.
hours
Thank
to
you
it.
for having me, and good luck for all the other recordings. I'm
Thank
looking forward
you.
to hearing those.
Thank you so much.
Good
Bye,
luck for
Arti.
doing
Take
this. Bye.
care. Bye.